All right. Hey guys. So what we're here doing is we're starting a series together, really based off of some of the stuff that we've been doing in our classes. And after me and Matt have kind of done some research and we've had some exposure into what's out there in the industry for the past 10 years, we want to make sure that our psychology is not going against our biology. And although we have gotten a lot from the personal development industry or the self-help industry, as we started researching the literature on neuroscience and psychology, there's some things that don't make sense, and they're actually contradictory goals that we have that can put us on a path that's not actually attainable. And so we wanted to create this little series for you guys and talk about what those things are. This one specifically is going to be why the pursuit of emotion is not helpful, specifically the pursuit of happiness, just because that's the one that's most talked about out there in the industry, that we should be pursuing happiness. So we're going to talk about why that's not a healthy pursuit and what the side effects are of having a type of goal like that. And one of the other things that we want to talk about, which is our basic assumption that we're going to start from these conversations, is that if we truly understood our psychology, our brains, and our behavior, that it would make sense. From an evolutionary perspective, it would make sense, opposed to starting with the assumption that we're inherently flawed and something needs to be fixed. So that's the assumption we're going to start with. If you guys, the first time hearing us, I'm Matt. I'm not Matt. I'm Josh.
You had me convinced there for a second. I was like, wait.
I forgot who I am. And so we started Arena Method together. So we're creating classes on how to try to get and combine some of the stuff that's in the psychological literature out there into the people that are looking to better their lives on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, I think what we've discovered through our own journeys, like you said, we've been in it in a super intense way for at least the last 10 years. I would say the last 10 years in a pretty in-depth, intense, focused way. Is what we're finding is there's a lot of people in that space that seem to be working on the same thing for like forever. Mm-hmm. Right. And it's like, man, why do I keep working on the same thing over and over and over? I can't seem to shake this thing, this pattern I have or whatever. And as we've really explored this at a deeper level, we're understanding why we were in this loop and why we see so many people in the loop, because so much of the stuff that's being taught in that space, we're finding out literally goes against some of our biological and evolutionary processes, which means we will be working on this stuff forever until we start to align our psychology with our biology. And that's what this series is all about.
Well said.
So what we're starting here with today, right, is how the pursuit of happiness and more specifically, the pursuit of emotions as the primary objective, how that goes against some of these foundational biological processes, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep. So one of the things that we would like to do, which we're not going to do at this, is start with defining what emotion is. And the reason why we're not really going to define emotion for you guys is because there's no really agreed upon definition of emotion in the literature, right? No one really agrees on the definition of an emotion, right? But what is an agreement in the literature?
Sorry, Josh, but they haven't even clearly identified what part of the brain is most responsible to our emotion, right? Some of you may have heard that the limbic system is the emotional center of the brain. No, sorry, right? Like neuroscience moving at light speed. Actually, that's not the case. Emotions are happening throughout the brain and is much more intricate and complex than we originally thought. So that's why we're not going to even attempt to define what an emotion is. Just think of it as sensations. Like there's a lot of things that go into the category emotion. But what we are going to do, which I think Josh is about to take us through, is what the role of emotions are, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So if we can agree on what the role of emotions are, then we can start to figure out why this pursuit of emotion doesn't make sense and how to start understanding our emotions, relating to our emotions, integrating our emotions to actually move forward towards the things that we want. And so if we look at two basic roles of emotion that we've defined in our classes, is emotions communicate and emotions motivate. And so how we've kind of talked about this is that, and this is what the literature shows in the current neuroscience, right? That as we experience the world through our senses. So as we sense the world, sensory information is processed up the nervous system and gets contrasted against a backdrop of knowledge and experiences, which is memory. And the combination of those will elicit emotion based off of that information and as it relates to any goal-directed behavior. And so if we have a goal in mind that we want to move towards, and then we experience that we're moving away from the goal or that an obstacle is in front of us, and we'll experience negative emotion. And that negative emotion is communicating off track. And it's also not a pleasant experience, which is motivating to set things right.
So it sounds like, Josh, when we feel an emotion, especially we'll just call it a negative emotion, one of the most important questions to ask is, why am I feeling this?
Mm-hmm.
And assessing, am I out of alignment here? It's a communication that either the backdrop needs to maybe be adjusted, or I need to make an adjustment because of the communication that I'm getting that, hey, I need to turn right instead of left here, as an example, right?
Yep. Yeah. I think one of the examples that popped in my head that I used in class was if I have a math tutor who's helping me with my geometry and I'm solving the problem and they can see that I'm starting to do it wrong and they say wrong. And I'm like, I might feel negative emotion with that communication, but the goal isn't I want to learn how to get him not to say that. Like, I'm going to try duct tape, right? I'm trying to artificially manipulate the communication instead of integrating what he's saying. So I stop solving the problem wrong. Yeah. Right. And so if we try to go after just the communication versus, no, I'm actually extremely grateful that he's here and that I have this communication system telling me when I'm off track so I can set things right. Because that's the way to get negative emotion to go away versus saying, oh, I've just been hurt. People have been telling me I'm wrong my whole life, blah, blah, blah. I need to learn how to deal with this voice in my head. It's like, why don't we start with the assumption that it's there for a reason, right? And there's something that we need to integrate. And if we don't integrate it and change something, then the communication stays.
Mm-hmm. And right? Either gets louder, right? And then we'll talk about if you really walk down this path and really quiet all the emotions, the only real option you have is to dissociate from your biological communication, which can be very dangerous, right? I mean, the analogy that I've used, similar to yours, Josh, is the dashboard in your car. When lights go on your dashboard, like low tire pressure, oil change, you could look at that and be like, it's inconvenient for me right now. I'm going to pretend it's not happening. Or there's some hacks out there that if you hold this button down for 90 seconds, you can make it go away completely. Right? Like you can get the yellow light to shut off if you hold the button down for 90 seconds, like it can't stay on. It's like, okay, there's some short-term benefit to that. It's like, oh, I don't have to get this communication that's uncomfortable. But if it's your car that's trying to communicate to you, listen, there's something you need to pay attention to. If you keep muting that or turning it off, eventually the car is going to break down and this body will literally break down. And this is in all the literature out there, what suppressed and repressed emotions do. It turns into disease over time because you're not getting rid of anything. You're either integrating it or you're ignoring it and suppressing it and constantly shutting it off.
Yeah. So there's one thing that you said there that made me highlight where I've seen the industry develop, right? Because I think, let's just say however many years ago, it was very common practice and accepted to just suppress and disconnect from emotion. And I think most people in the industry today know, suppressing emotion is probably not the best. We want to feel our emotions, accept our emotions. Yeah. I'm unhappy. Let me just accept it and let it pass. It's like, I'm going to feel it, right? That's like saying, oh, my low gas light is on. Let me just be okay with my gas light.
Breathe
okay.
And accept it.
Yeah. And then tomorrow I'll feel slightly better and then I'll keep moving forward. It's like, but then what's going to happen? You're going to run out of gas and the light's still on.
Right.
You have to keep tending to the same thing. So it's not enough to just feel it. And it's not enough to just hear what it's communicating. You have to integrate the communication, right? To create a change. You have to go to the gas station and get gas.
Yeah. Super important.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I think that, if we summarize emotions is a communication system. What enrolls that communication system is any type of goal-directed behavior. So if we have a goal or something that we're aiming at, that enrolls the communication system. So our hippocampus can detect progress towards the goal, which would be positive emotion. And when it detects obstacles or that we're off track, negative emotion. And so the second we're off track, we want to figure out why we're off track and what we need to do to set things right. Now, every once in a while, and this is the stuff that we've talked about in the trauma literature, is that we could have a emotional response that's not a full representation of where we're at in that communication system, but it's based off of the context of the backdrop, which is past experience. So there's still something to integrate there, but to start with the assumption that that's always the case and that we should disregard emotion because there are these prehistoric old type of patterns that don't make sense for the present moment. What it does is it dampens our communication system and mutes our motivational system to actually set things right.
Yeah, and so you talked about basically goals are telling us when we're aligned. Emotions are telling us when we're aligned with goals. Okay, but Josh, I gotta ask a question here. What if my goal is to be happy? I thought you said emotions I shouldn't be pursuing, but what are you going to tell me that I don't want to be happy?
Yeah. So yeah, I know. Hey, we're not trying to tell anybody anything. This is the fair question. I think this is what's allowed so many people to have this type of pursuits because when I'm happy, that's a very enjoyable experience. So then if I put A plus B, then yeah, I want to be happy. And I had someone in my class who's a nurse who said this. Who's like, I know what my aim is. I just want to be happy. And she's a nurse. So I said, hey, so let me walk you through an example. Let's pretend I have an IV in my room, in my office, and it's a happiness bag. And so I can hook you up to it. And the happiness drip will make you in a constant state of happiness. And so I'm going to just hook you up to that until you die. And I'm guaranteeing your happiness 24/7, maxed out happily until you die. Now, I know you have kids, like they're obviously going to go away. They'll forget about you, but not really important. You're going to be happy, right? Would that be something that you'd take me up on? And of course she was like, no, like didn't even entertain the thought. I'm like, okay, hold on. This doesn't make any sense to me. Because you just try to communicate the thing that's at the core of what you're yearning for and what you want. And I can guarantee it to you forever without any intermittence. And you didn't even consider it. What's that about? She's like, why? I just wouldn't want that. I'm like, so you'd rather instead pick the pursuit of your family and your job, which has hardship, challenge, adversity, constant fluctuation and positive and negative emotion. You'd pick that instead of this. She says, yes. I said, why would you do that? She said, because it's worth it. And that's the point. Pursue something that's worth it, right? Having a worthy, and this is what we talk about in Arena, is having a worthy pursuit. It's not the absence of challenge. It's not the absence of negative emotion. It's finding something that's worth it, right?
Yeah, and it's funny because when I think about the clients I've worked with over the years, I'll get on the phone and they're like, I'm like, well, what do you want? And they're like, I just want to be peaceful. I just want to relax and I just want peaceful. And I always say to them, all right, so let's say you're peaceful and you're relaxed. Then what? Like, how long can you sit in a hammock on the beach? Like at some point in time, you're going to be bored and you're going to want to get up and do something. Right. I mean, the classic example are people that are sprinting to retirement and are bored out of their minds because they have nothing to pursue anymore. There's nothing meaningful or valuable that they're engaged with in pursuing. So I think my perception and what I've seen working with people is when people are like, I just want to be happy. I just want some peace. What I'm hearing, what my perception of where they're at, what I find they're at is, right now, I am in so much pain. I just want the pain to go away. That's all I want. I just want the pain to go away. And I hear you. And that is important and valuable. But the next question is, okay, once you're out of this survival mode threat that your system perceives it's in, yes, happiness, peace might be the goal right now, but there's the steps after that is actually going to translate to sustained fulfillment, happiness, and joy, because it's going to be tied to something important to you, to your point. career, impact, children, family, partner, what have you.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah. That's essentially what sums up why we don't think it's a good idea to have the pursuit of emotion, because emotion is a byproduct of a worthy pursuit. Have a worthy pursuit, something that you're pursuing that is that is worth it. Whether it has adversity, challenge, going to take a lot of work, ethic, it doesn't matter. Pick something that you think is worth it. And the byproduct of making progress towards that thing is positive emotion, right? But to pursue positive emotion absent worth doesn't make any sense. No, right? It has to be created artificially. Exactly. And then you won't make progress in that way. And the brain doesn't like not making progress. So what does the brain do? It dissociates. You live in a fantasy.
This is where I see people that are in, we'll call it relationships, that every part of their being is like, this isn't my spot, or they're part of a community, or they're part of a career where something inside of them is just constantly communicating to them that something's off. And they relate to it as, oh, I'm feeling this because there's something wrong with me. I can be fulfilled here. I can be happy. I'm just going to focus on being fulfilled. And to me, that is the process of white knuckling yourself to happiness and fulfillment, and ignoring this communication screaming at you inside that there is something seriously off here. Mm-hmm. We're not aligned with what we value, who we want to be, and some of those biological needs like safety and belonging. It's amazing how, and humans have an ability to do that, to kind of suppress this with the mind, right? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But my God, the destruction that can happen through that. And like we spoke about in the beginning, and what I think you just said there, Josh, was the only way to accomplish that goal is to completely dissociate from emotion. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of the deer in the headlights, like everything's great. You know what I mean? Like dissociated. Mm-hmm. Right. And I don't think anybody wants to go through life completely detached and dissociated from themselves.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Good point. So I think that's kind of wraps it up. Why we think this idea of pursuing emotion isn't helpful, what the side effects are that it does. And what we're essentially saying is pursue something that you find meaningful and worth it, and knowing that you're going to experience adversity, challenge, negative emotion at times, but it's worth it.
You'll have the resiliency to move through those challenges if you tie value to it. Anybody who's dealing with children, or like the things we put up with as parents and what we tolerate because we care, because we value that experience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So the resiliency, if you're looking for more resiliency, find the thing that's meaningful and important to you. If you're looking for sustained motivation, focus on what's meaningful and valuable to you. And if you want to feel a sense of fulfillment and joy through the process, meaning and what's important to you. I mean, it's the secret sauce, which is why Arena Method is what it is.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Awesome. Cool.
Well, stay tuned for more of these examples, right, Josh? We're going to talk about other things that are out there that you may be engaging with right now, in your life, that has you in this experience that I think of Groundhog's Day. It's like, man, I just keep reliving the same thing over and over and over again. So that's what this series is all about, really starting to identify when our psychology is at war with our biology.